Yo. Give me 1 second. It's good, boys. Give me 1 second. Alright, pause that. Give me 1 second. Camera. Hold on 1 second. How's the camera look, boys? Camera look good? Playoffs about to, the show's about to start. Show's about to begin. Subby, what's good? Dude, every time I start my stream, my camera goes away, and then I have to figure out if it's like how bright it is. Alright. Alright, show started. Let's see how this goes, boys. Watching me while eating dinner? Heck yeah. Alright, let's see what these playoff rankings look like. Alright, so my plan is to put it all here so we can see. All right. My predictions, I think the top 3 are pretty simple. So I think top 3 are going to be Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia. That's what I think it should be. But then after that, man, I don't really know what the committee's going to do, to be honest. You go Miami? I mean, Penn State's got to be what, 6? Texas 5? Or Texas 4, Miami 5. And then after that, it's really whatever you prefer or whatever you think weighs more in a debate. You think better wins or the fact that you haven't lost? And I'm talking about Indiana. Indiana's a wild card in this, man. They haven't lost, but they haven't played anyone. They haven't beat anyone. Now, something they do have that I think will get brought up tonight by the guys on the show is they beat Nebraska by 40. And then Nebraska almost beat Ohio State the following week. So they have that going for them, for sure. They got that going for them for sure. Now, will the committee think that's important? I'll be honest, I doubt it. You never know. Yeah, I'll say this too. If Missouri's ranked, that's just not right. That's just not. If Missouri's ranked, that's just wrong. They're not a good football team. Not a good football team. I don't know how much longer until they actually start the rankings. But right now they're explaining how the playoffs gonna work. 12-team playoff. 5 teams, 5 highest conference champs. And the 4 highest conference champs are the 1 through 4. Okay. The first round is 8 teams. The highest group of 5 team gets in. Remember that first round, those 8 teams that play in the first round, those are on campus games. So that's why the seeding, like, it really matters this year, man. It really matters, especially for the first round. Because if you're 5 through 8, you get a home game. As opposed, yeah, as opposed to being 9 through 12, you'd have a road game in the first round, which is just unfortunate if that happens, especially if you're the 12 seed. Many people think Boise is going to be the 12 seed, Boise State. Now, Boise State, I'm going to be honest, the way things are going with Clemson losing and SMU winning, if more crazy things happen, if chaos continues, Boise State could get that 4 spot. But being the 4th highest conference champ, but it is really just going to depend on the Big 12 too. When you had Iowa State lose, BYU still undefeated, so right now they're talking about Indiana right now. They're basically saying what I'm saying, how Indiana has been disrespected, but will the committee take into consideration that they really haven't beat anyone like top caliber, but they've been dominant for one, and two, there's common opponents, and the common opponents that they've played, like considering Ohio State, you think about Michigan State game just last weekend. Oh, they were down by what 3 or 7 points, and then they ended up winning like 40-10. So yeah, see that's important. Who you played, but how you look playing them. Like both things should matter equally, in my opinion. Like if you're playing bad teams and you're winning by 30-40 a game, like okay, you're doing your job because there's good teams out there that a lot of people think are good, and then they don't go and take care of business. Like that should matter. Like I view Penn State in that category. I think a lot of people would. Penn State hasn't been dominant. They've squeaked by games and against teams that they should have beat by multiple scores, or maybe by 20 plus. But maybe they won by 7, 10, 3 points. You know what I'm saying? Like that's gonna matter. Also, another thing, Alabama and LSU, their rankings matter a lot this week, and next week, because they play each other and they both have 2 losses now. A lot of people probably think the loser's out. It's an elimination game, but the committee's gonna tell us a lot. All right, here we go. They're gonna start. Army's 25. Oh shoot. So we got Army at 25. I'm not mad about that. I think they deserve that. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Here we go. Missouri's 24. You got to be kidding me, dude. If they weren't in the SEC, they would not be ranked. I think that's pretty simple. Like, get out of here, man. Like, did they not? Are they not watching the games? Clemson. That's understandable. You can't drop them all the way out. You cannot take Clemson all the way out. One of their losses is to Georgia. Like, okay. 22, 23 of these other teams are losing to Georgia too that are ranked. So Louisville, I like that. So this is what I like about Louisville. being above Clemson. They just beat Clemson one. They're 6-3. Yes, they have one more loss, but head to head. Also, Louisville played Miami, and it was a struggle for Miami. Like, it was a good game. Here we go. Washington State. So this is the problem with Washington State. They're probably going to talk about this. Washington State is with Oregon State. Like, they don't have a conference. And remember what we said, the top, what was it, the top 4 conference champs are going to be 1 through 4. Highest group of 5 then. And Washington State can't get an automatic bid. They can't win a conference, so. Washington State, the problem that they have is Boise State. Boise State staying ahead of them. So, we'll see. Colorado 20, I like Colorado at 20. They're taking care of business right now. They're doing their job. I mean, if you're going to have Clemson at 23, Colorado has to be up there too. They have to be right by him. Kansas State 19. I don't mind Kansas State being on 19. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Pitt. Okay, now see, this is tough. Pitt, similar to Indiana, they haven't played anyone. But dude, Pitt just got smoked by SMU. I think you got to put Kansas State above Pitt. Above Pitt. I mean, one of Kansas State's losses, they lost at BYU in a weird game. Iowa State, yeah, they have to drop. Not a great schedule. You lost. Ole Miss at 16. Ole Miss is going to be in the same category as Alabama and LSU. I think they're going to be 2 of the next 3, I think. They should be. Ole Miss plays Georgia, right, this week? So if they lose, they're done. I don't think they're going to have opportunity to get back in there. Nor should they. I mean, if you lose 3 games, like at some point you have to win a big game. I like where they're at right now. Like if they win out, they should be in. There's LSU. Alabama's got to be coming up. These teams are all in the same boat. So far, LSU Ole Miss, I like this. I just think Alabama needs to be 13 or 14. Alabama can't be 12. They cannot be 12. Because if Alabama's 12, that means Boise State's probably 13 or 14, right? And that's just not fair to Boise. Boise's taking care of business. UNLV, that was a tough game for Boise, and they ended up pulling it out. Also, Boise's only loss is probably going to be the number 1 team. So, I mean, and they lost by 3 points to the number 1 team on the road in week 2. Texas A&M. Okay, so this is interesting. Yeah, I don't like this. They have SMU at 13 too. See, Alabama should be with all these teams. Like, I like SMU being there. Texas A&M, they're really hard to judge. I mean, Texas A&M is 10 spots between them and Missouri. They have 10 spots, and they beat them by 30 points. So, you take that with what you will, but I think that should matter. And there's Boise. They have Alabama all the way up here, guys. So what that tells you, Alabama with a win this Saturday against LSU. What that tells you, Alabama's moving up. They're gonna be top 8 probably, top 7, top 6, with 2 losses. So they're saying those losses may not matter. There's Alabama, 11. Yep. Man, see, this gives Alabama a chance if they lose to LSU, man. You might not think it does, but dude, if they have Alabama at number 11 with 2 losses, Hmm. Boise at 12. I get it. I do, but man, it's just really unfair to some of these teams how they're treating them. Like Army's 25, Missouri gets to be ranked. Like make that make sense, man. Like Boise State is taking care of their business right now. There's Notre Dame. Now Notre Dame is gonna have the worst loss of any playoff team. That's probably not even a debate, but it was early in the year, and they've looked really good in recent games. And hey, if they win out, they'll be in. Like I think that's pretty simple, as they should be. There's BYU. Now I'm glad BYU is above Alabama. So BYU's ranked ninth, but what they're saying right now on the show is BYU would be ranked number 4. BYU would be ranked number 4 because they're the 4th highest conference leader, and Boise would be the 12th seed, no matter what, because they'd be the last remaining team, regardless. As to vice versa, if Boise was ahead of BYU, Boise would be the 4 seed. BYU would be the 12. And there's Indiana. Nice. This is good. They got this right at least. They got Indiana at 8. All right. Yeah, Indiana at 8. I like that. See, people are gonna push back Indiana being 8. Like, who have they played? Who have they played? But guys, at some point, the way you look, the way you're beating teams, that needs to matter. That needs to matter. The saying is, you're not always what your record says you are, but on the flip side, okay, you're dominating teams. Like if a team is like 5-2, right? But maybe they lost those 2 games to 2 top 5 teams by 3 points, right? Maybe they're not as bad as 5-2 may sound. Maybe they're just a little bit better. But Indiana on the flip side, they're undefeated. Yeah, they haven't played in really good teams, but they're smoking them, right? There we go, Tennessee. Oops. Where do they stand? Where do they stand? See, Tennessee's the flip side of Indiana, I think, right? Yeah, their schedule has been really hard. They've had pretty good games early in the year, but who have they played, right? In some games, I think of the Arkansas game, right? And then look at Arkansas now. Look at Arkansas last week against Ole Miss. They just got blown out the building. So, how's Indiana looked? How's Tennessee looked? But then that's where the schedule comes in. That's why I should equally balance. Like I said at the beginning, like both things should matter and they need to matter. The committee, I hope, man, I hope they do it all year, the rest of the year. They got 4 or 5 weeks. All right. So far, top 6 predictions on what I thought they should be are good. I said Penn State 6. Yeah. And there's Texas. All right, so we're good so far. I think this is good. See what you think. Oregon 1. Who's going to be number 2? if Texas is 5, if Texas is 5, I think Georgia will be 3 or maybe 2. I don't know because Georgia beat Texas, and they think Texas is better than Penn State, and Ohio State beat Penn State. One was very convincing, the other was down to the last drive. There's Miami. Okay. Miami's 4. So the 4 through 6 we kind of predicted, and it wasn't very difficult. The committee, I think they got it right. Now this matters. I think 2 and 3 matter because if 1 through 3 all went out, you'd assume Oregon's gonna be number 1. But who's gonna be 2 heading into conference title week or 3? Because remember, you gotta remember these seeds matter for home playoff games. Because if you're number 2, 3, 4, like that doesn't matter. If you go in the conference title week and you lose, you have to remember if you lose, you can't get a bye. You cannot get a bye. But you can if you're still high enough, you can get a home game. You can get a home game. And there's Georgia. All right, so I'm not gonna put it in yet. You never know, but obviously you'd assume Ohio State 2, Oregon 1. There we go. All right, I think they got it right. I like this. 2 lost to 1 by a point. Georgia beat 5 convincingly. Okay, so they should be ahead of Miami. Like I don't care about that Alabama loss. Miami has not played a soul in comparison to Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, right? And I say that one game, Ohio State playing Oregon is enough to say they played a harder schedule than Miami, right? Texas, like we said, Texas and Penn State are probably in the same boat. Yeah, you haven't beat anyone. You really have not beat any top tier teams, and you lost your big game. You lost your big game. Like that, you're in the same boat as Ohio State. Ohio State, they lost their big game to the team they're behind. That's the only reason they're 2, not 1. Georgia, they lost to Alabama. That's your loss. You lost a big game. You're behind Ohio State. Miami, you haven't even played a big game yet. So there's no reason for you to go up there. And then Tennessee, you've split your opportunities, right? You've split your opportunities. Indiana, you haven't had the opportunity yet. You're gonna get your opportunity. Well, this week they play Michigan on the road. Don't want to overlook it, but they have Ohio State coming up, so they're gonna have their opportunity. And I think BYU being 9 and Indiana 8, that says something. They're valuing these teams winning games. Like yeah, you can say oh they should be higher, they should be above Penn State, Tennessee. Okay, if they were higher, we probably wouldn't be sitting here complaining. Like it makes sense, right? But I think it's important because we've seen in years past where Indiana and BYU teams like that, they'd be like 16 or 17, right? Or like Army. Army is 25. They're undefeated. And Missouri for some reason is 24. Like are you really putting Missouri at 24? Like yeah, they beat Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt they were competitive against Texas and Alabama, man. They beat Alabama. So overall thoughts, I think the committee did an okay job. Like there's some things that I think they nailed, right? I think they nailed the top, which obviously wasn't that difficult. But some things that like I think they missed, man. Missouri won, as we talked about. Pitt, I don't know if I'd keep them at 18, man. I dropped them just a little bit. Alabama being 11, I dropped them just a little bit too. Like I think Boise and SMU should be above them. Texas A&M. See Texas A&M. If you're gonna have them at 14, Notre Dame. Yeah, people will forget Notre Dame beat them. Notre Dame went into College Station on a Saturday night and beat Texas A&M. So you kind of gotta. That's gotta balance out. I think. You know. So the matchups would be. That's what I'm just thinking about. The matchups for the playoff this year are just gonna be off the charts, man. It's gonna be off the charts. And overall, yeah, I think they did a good job ranking these teams. Really think so. So yeah, that's gonna do it for that. Because now I think they're just gonna talk about another 30 minutes. I think they're just gonna talk about it. So all right, good deal, good deal. Dropping frames now. Hmm. All right, cue this up. Play some COD. Let's go. All right, I gotta change my title now. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna end stream, and then we'll just hop back in and play COD.